Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a good few different styles, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for the different kinds of German and Central European lagers and also for their more traditional English style beers as well. So the one we're going to have a look at today is a beer that I have tried before, albeit only on tap. I don't think I've actually seen this one in bottle before, if memory serves me correctly, but regardless, it's a style I very much enjoy, one that we don't get to review on the channel all that often, so definitely looking forward to this one. Hopefully it's as good as I remember, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Örebro, which is out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Närke Kulturbryggeri. So this particular beer is simply called Märzen. It comes in at 6% ABV, and I think from the name you know what style this one is. A German style Märzen lager, which is of course a kind of slightly stronger, more amber lager beer. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the Local Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2023. And as I said, this is the first time I remember seeing this beer in bottle, but they will no doubt have released this one a few times previously. But yeah, let's crack on and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Närke Kulturbryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go up to the search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries, and you'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with many other things. And like I say, there are playlists for a number of different countries there. But yeah, let's go on and have a little look at my notes then for Närke Kulturbryggeri. And these guys, of course, are one of the kind of pioneers of the Swedish beer scene. So, Närke Kulturbryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and this brewery was founded back in 2003. So this year is their 20th anniversary year. But the company was founded by Håge Viktorsson and Berit Karlsson. Håge Viktorsson had a career as a photographer and an artist before he became a brewer, and Berit is actually the CEO of the company, but also the chair of the Swedish Independent Brewers Association, eller på svenska Sveriges oberoende mikrobryggerier, if I remember correctly. But for a long time, or Föreningen it would be, I think, yeah. But for a long time, this brewery were only producing keg beer, but they recently began to produce bottled beer as well, and this allowed them to grow substantially. And this came after they bought the brew kit, the former brew kit and former bottling machine of Nynäshamn Ångbryggeri, who were going through an expansion phase. But today the brewery produce around 100,000 litres of beer per year, and they're particularly well known for the Kagen Stormax Porter, which was rated as the world's best beer for quite a long time on Rate Beer, and there are various different versions of that these days. But the first beer was produced in 2004 simply as Stormax Porter, or strong, well, Stormax would be like strong strength porter, I guess. But then later, when it was aged in bourbon barrels, it became Kagen Stormax Porter. And like I say, there are various different versions of this now. But the company over the last few years have continued to develop new recipes and so on, but sadly Håge Viktorsson died of cancer in September of 2020. But the brewery has carried on. The brewers Emil Arvidsson and Jürgen Hjerling are now co-owners in the company, and they run at the production side of things, whereas Berit takes care of pretty much everything behind the scenes, and I believe she is also still involved with the Swedish Independent Microbrewers Association as well. But as of March 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 130 different kinds of beer, and like I said, this brewery is best known for their kind of German, Central European lagers, and also for their kind of traditional English style beers as well. The Örebro Bitter is probably the best known beer that these guys have done, along with the Kagen Stormax Porter. But they've got various different lagers and stuff, and it is just worth keeping an eye on what these guys are producing. But yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about Närke Kulturbryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys though, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have produced. So yeah, let's carry on and have a little look at the beer itself. So like I mentioned to you, this one was released as part of the Lokalt Småska League assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2023, but it no doubt has been released at various other times and will be released at various other times going forward. You can see the artwork on this one is pretty typical with what we've seen from Närke Kulturbryggeri before. You can also see the Närke Kulturbryggeri bottle cap on this too, and you've got a picture of Mars behind there, which is very nice. Of course, Mars, the Roman god of war, the fourth planet in the solar system. The name of this beer style, Märzen, it comes because the beer was it tended to be brewed in March, and then of course it was aged and left to lager until October. So you had the Oktoberfest Märzen, so that was why this lager was always a little bit stronger actually. So yeah, really interesting style, and one, like I say, that you don't come across all that often, especially at this time of year, come to think about it. So yeah, 6% Märzen, this one, 330ml bottle. I think I paid about 30 Swedish krona for this. I could be wrong, but it might have been a little bit more. My only complaint about this so far, 330ml bottle. This, you know, when you're selling a lager, it really should be in either a 440 can or a 500ml bottle. You know, Närke tend to use bottles. I don't think I've ever seen a can Närke beer though, come to think of it. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. This should be quite nice. A little bit of smoke on the opening, but we'll get the beer out into the glass and see how we go. Yes. Yeah, there we go. So, as you can see, this beer has poured pretty much as you would expect of a Märzen. It's one of the more reddish ones that I've seen, come to think of it. But yeah, it does look very, very nice. So, before the head disappears, I think we can say this beer is poured with about a half finger of a kind of fawn cream coloured head. The bubbles in this one are quite kind of medium size, so you can have a little look at that. It does look pretty nice. So yeah, kind of medium-sized bubbles in there, a few bigger ones sitting on top. It does look very, very nice. Like I say, this beer, for me, it's kind of like a slightly stained or maybe natural mahogany colour. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on, one, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put in can affect that too. In the case of Märzens though, that you're not really going to have to care about those latter two variables. But as I say, certainly one of the more ambery, mahogany colour beers that I've seen. But like I say, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the surface there. The head has now faded away to just be a thin foamy layer with a ring around the edge. And there's a little bit of an island of bubble in the middle of there. But it looks very, very nice. Other than that, don't think we need to say anything about the appearance of this one. It is pretty clear. It's got a little touch of natural haze to it. But yeah, I think that's everything. Let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. Oh yeah, I have to say that does smell very, very nice. So, this is always the thing with Närke, you know, these guys, it's only, to be honest with you, it's only really been since I started working at Bishop's Arms, doing a few shifts in there, that I really started to get into the Nynäs and the Närke Kulturbryggeri beers a little bit more, because my colleague Alan, he loves these two breweries, and you know, I can see why. He's really got me into lagers and farmhouse beers a lot more than I was before. I was tending to drink a little bit more of everything, but these days I actively kind of go and seek to try different kinds of lagers and stuff. He's kind of made my interest, he's put my interest along the lines of wanting to try all the stuff from Närke and review all the stuff from Närke that I just haven't covered before. The same with Nynäs as well. And these two are, of course, two of the classic Swedish craft breweries. But it's beers like this that are just very, very nice. But this one gives you everything you would want from the Märzen style. Actually, it's a very straightforward aroma, but you know, when it comes to these beers, what you want is something that's well done, is true to the style. Yeah, that's what we want, and that's what you tend to get with Närke in my experience. But yeah, this beer is lovely. So let's break it down. The backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of you've got a lovely little bit of bread crust in this one, forming the backbone of the beer. It's like a kind of slightly toasty wholemeal bread crust that you get out of this one. On top of that, you've got a lovely little bit of you've got a lovely little touch of rye bread to this beer as well, I would say. So yeah, fresh, slightly toasty bread crust in there. Good little bit of rye bread, some sweet kind of wholemeal brown bread as well. There's a little touch of woodiness coming out of the aroma here as well, which I do like. And then above that, I do get some white bready character. Yeah, I do get some white bready character out of this one. Yeah, definitely. The more I smell of it, actually, I get more and more white bread out of it. I was just trying to see how that would develop. So yeah, lovely little bit of white bready character in there. And then on top of that, you get the brown sugars. One thing I would say about this beer, actually, compared to other Märzens I've had before, this one isn't one. It's one of the more bready ones I've come across. I would love to know where they're getting the malt for this one. Is it Swedish malt or is it German malt or exactly how? I'm sure I could email them and ask them, because yeah, they actually, there's a partnership between Närke and Bishop's Arms, of course, and they come and visit us quite often. And Malmo, I met the three of them recently. I probably could just ask them whether the malts are, but for me, this is definitely one of the more bready Märzens that I've come across. But above the white bread, you start to get a little bit of, as we say, you start to get a little bit of, how would we say? There's a little bit of toasty brown sugar in there, not too much. It's got a little bit of a leathery character to it as well, which I actually quite like. There's a little bit of leathery brown sugar in there, a little bit of toasty brown sugar, a wee bit of sweet caramel, and a wee bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuit. But like I say, for me, in terms of the Märzen style generally, this is absolutely one of the more bready examples, I would say, that I've come across. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the hoppy side of things then. I think that, to be honest, is everything we really need to say about the malty side of the beer. But yeah, on the on the hoppy side of things, for me on the hoppy side of things, it's kind of what you would expect. I do suspect this is probably German noble hop that's in here. There's a little bit of earthiness, there's a little bit of herbal character in there as well. The other thing I would say about this beer is that it doesn't strike me as being overly fresh, to be honest with you. The hoppy character does seem as if it's dropped a little bit, and I just noticed when they call this Märzen, I'm pretty sure we had this beer a few months ago at the pub, and I just noticed that the best before date, it says the 16th of the 10th, 23. Usually I think it would be a year. These beers would be have a year sell by date, so I think this has probably been, for some reason, this has been sitting in Systembolagets warehouse for a while. Either that or the brewery have had extra Märzen that they've put out, or they've had to hold it for a Märzen space or something like this. This is just the kind of the Systembolaget system. It can be a little bit strange. So yeah, to get, as I say, to get a Märzen in March, it's kind of unusual, as I say, in that sense, particularly in Sweden, because normally this beer style is associated with Oktoberfest. But still kind of cool. But potentially that's what they've done with this one. But of course, it could have been brewed in February, and they've put 6 months on the bottle. I don't know, but I would assume that it'd be a year. That would make a bit more sense, to be honest with you, and it is in keeping with what I've seen from Närke before. But the hoppy character in the aroma certainly tells me this beer. I don't think this beer is completely freshly brewed. I think this one's got a few weeks on it anyway, but we'll see. But yeah, I do get a little bit of earthiness out of the beer. There's a little bit of herbal character in there, and when it's German hops, the presence of these things tend to tell you that the hoppy character has dropped out a little bit. At the same time, though, you get a little bit of a floral note out of it, and you do also get A little touch of grassiness on the front of the nose there too. There are a few fruity elements to this beer as well. You know, I'm getting that. There's a tiny little touch of red fruit in there, but I'm getting kind of oily pear. Yeah, I'm absolutely getting some nice kind of oily peary notes out of it. There's a little touch of red fruity character in there. I'm also getting like sultanas and things like that too. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense, I think, is very very nice. So yeah, aroma wise, I think this is it's pretty much in keeping with the Märzen as a style, but it's also one of the more bready Märzens that I've come across, and I do wonder if this beer has been sitting a little bit to be released in March and it's been brewed back in October or something, just from the date that's on the bottle there. But maybe this is me overthinking, which can happen in some of these videos, I'll have to say. But anyway, regardless, I'm sure we'll get a good quality Märzen here. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the aroma. Let's just crack on and have a taste of this one then. So this beer is simply called Märzen, a 6% Märzen lager beer from Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that is pretty damn nice, I have to say. As I say, probably my only complaint about this is that it should be in a half-litre. Närke do half-litre bottles, so that would be my one complaint to them, is that if you're going to do this beer, put it in a 500ml bottle and brew a few more batches of it. That'd be the only thing I would say. Obviously, there's the commercial side of it, but yeah, for me, a lager beer like this needs to be a half-litre. So yeah, I like this. I really do like how this beer goes together. It gets a big thumbs up from me. The Märzen style, as I say, it's an interesting one. You've got the Czech Letsack beers as well, which are quite similar. The Vienna lager is not a million miles away, but for me, the main difference between the German Märzen and the Austrian Vienna lager, the Vienna lagers tend to be a little bit more kind of grainy and rye bready, whereas the Märzens tend to be a little bit smoother and more biscuity actually. You know, let me know your own thoughts on that in the comment section below. What differences would you pick out between the Czech Letsack, the German Märzen, and the Austrian Vienna lager? Because you know, all of these different lager styles are not a million miles away from each other in terms of flavour profile. But like I say again, for me with this one, when I think about it, it does strike me as one of the more bready Märzens that I've come across, but it's quite full in its body as well, which is nice. So yeah, let's try and break this down and just describe it a little bit more in depth, as we always do on the channel. So yeah, middle third of your palate then with this beer. The backbone of the beer is obviously that kind of slightly dry, toasty, bread crusty character. That forms the backbone of the beer. It sits there. On top of that, you have or toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you do get a little touch of woodiness there, which I do enjoy. But yeah, nice kind of bread crust, nice kind of slightly dry, toasty bread crusty characters in there. As I said, you've got a little bit of woodiness, and then on top of that, you have you do have a little bit of a kind of rye bready layer. So you've got this kind of thinner rye bready layer. So yeah, the thinner kind of rye bready note, and there's got a little bit of toastiness to it and a little bit of kind of caramelisation. Then above that, you've got a more wholemeal, brown bready sort of thing going on as well, which I do quite like. Above that, you do start to get a little bit of the white bready character, so you can feel that layer of white bread in the middle third of your palate. But for me, it's bread crust, a little touch of rye bread, a more grainy wholemeal bread, and then the white bread. I think that, like I said, this whole Märzen for me is quite a bready example of the style, and it all goes together really nicely. But above the white bready layer, you start to get some of the kind of brown sugary notes. So let's focus on that. So on the brown sugary side of things, you have a little bit of a above the white bready layer, you get the brown sugary notes. And for me, there's a little touch of a kind of leathery brown sugar to this beer, and I don't think that's due to the there being a slight, there could well be a slightly longer wort boil, you never know, but I don't think it's kind of really associated to that. So yeah, you've got that nice kind of leathery brown sugary character in there, but in the dead center of your palate, there's a little bit of there's a kind of little circle in the middle of your palate, and you've got that it's interesting because it does have a little bit of the caramelly sweetness, but at the same time it feels a little bit more oily and dense than that. And as you move a wee bit further out from it, there's a bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character to it as well. So yeah, I really do like how that pieces together in this one. The more that I drink of this beer, the more of the leatheriness that I get. But the kind of leathery brown sugar is quite, it's quite in keeping with the kind of rye and brown bready side of the beer as well, which I do like. So yeah, the way everything goes together in this one is really quite nice. Actually, this beer, it does sweeten up a little bit and mellow out the more that you drink of it too. But a very nice example of the Märzen style. I think we've said, like I say, everything we need to about the middle third of the palate in this beer. So yeah, on the onto the back third of the palate then, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there. And I think that goes together quite well. Yeah, nice little bit of wholemeal brown bready character. The base of that back third of the palate, you get the layers are all similar in this one, but they're kind of different heights, if that makes sense. But as I always say, on the back third of the palate, you tend to get a little bit more dryness and bitterness. I always find that drier and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. So yeah, the backbone, the base layer of that, the base layer of that back third of your palate, you can feel the nice kind of drier elements of the bread crust in there. On top of that, you have the kind of rye bready layer, and that's a little bit taller, but it's also a wee bit more. It's got a little bit more airiness to it as well. Then you've got the brown bready layer, which is the same, a little bit taller and a wee bit more airy in a sense, also a little bit drier. And then you have the white bready layer above all of that too. So yeah, the way that goes together is really, really nice. Above everything else, you've got a little bit, you can feel a little bit of the leathery brown sugar sitting there, and then on top of all of that, you've got a more kind of yeasty, you do have a little bit of a more kind of yeasty and farmhousey bready character. A wee bit of honeycomb in there too. I always get honeycomb in the back third of the palate, but I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of this beer quite well. But yeah, back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of squashes down and condenses together that little bit more. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So green component first. Yeah, so for me, the green component of this beer is kind of as expected. It has got a little bit more grassy and floral character to it than the aroma would have you believe, and the hops are still a bit more present than the aroma would have you believe. But in the back corners of the palate, absolutely, you've got a little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, there's a little touch of herbal character, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got a little bit more kind of floral character out of it as well. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is quite nice. Round the front curve of the tongue, you've got a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing to it. And yeah, I do think that goes together really quite well. Yeah, gets a thumbs up. Definitely gets a big thumbs up for me on the green component side of things. And I do think it's probably Hallertau or Tecknang hops that are in here, German noble ones. It's the brightness of the green character that kind of gives that away. For me, the German hops are always quite bright. The Czech ones are a bit spicy, and the Slovenian ones are very, very smooth. So yeah, I think that's it. But on the front third of your palate then, the fruity side of the beer, so the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a bready build up in this one. It's kind of a brown bready sort of thing. The base of that front third of your palate is a little bit more, as I say, you've got a little bit of that more bread crust. You've got a bit of the kind of slightly toasty bread crust in there. You've got the rye bread on top and a wee bit of the wholemeal brown bread. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah. So yeah, on the pardon me, on the fruity side of things, then the beer is pretty much as you would expect. At the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of you've got a little bit of a kind of sultana type quality. Absolutely, you know, dry white green grapes, and as you move further forward, it gets a wee bit more oily and peary, and then as you reach the kind of front tip of that, as you reach the front tip of the tongue, oh, sorry about that. As you reach the kind of front tip of the tongue there, you know, I was wondering what the vibration was. As you reach the kind of front tip of the tongue, you start to get a little touch of a fresh green apple in there. There is a little touch of red fruit kind of underneath this one. So yeah, that's quite interesting as well, actually. But yeah, the fruity character in this beer is quite is quite oily, I would say, as well. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice. Yeah, so I think we can leave it at that for the flavour side of the beer. That's got a nice kind of dry, fruity character to it as well, which is good. Yeah, there's a little bit of dryness in there as well toward the aftertaste. Brains, I don't know what's going on with my phone there, it's sitting away vibrating. But anyway, so nice oily character to this one. And this beer, the further into the aftertaste you go, it really does get that little bit drier, actually. Yeah, so to round off this review then, with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel, for me, I would say overall this beer has a good little bit of wetness and cleanliness to it, but at the same time also a good bit of oily character. One of the more oily Märzens that I've come across in that sense, but there's also a good bit of dryness, as I've just said, going into the aftertaste. In terms of IBUs with this beer, what would we say? I think we should also say this beer for me, it's light bodied but toward the top end of light bodied. Yeah, so toward the top end of light bodied for me. The IBU count I think on this one is probably about a standard 20, maybe 25, but the dryness maybe makes you think it's a wee bit more. So yeah, 20, 25 IBUs. The malt base, as we said, has a bit of dryness to it. It's got a bit of smoothness, and it does have a little touch of sweetness. Then you've also got the nice kind of oily, fruity characters in there as well. A little bit of sweetness, but also a little touch dry from that side of things. So yeah, I think this beer goes together really nicely from that particular in that particular regard. So yeah, really nicely done, Märzen. This is one of the more bready examples of the style that I've had, but still quite nice and kind of quite nice and clean at the same time, which you do expect both of Närke Kulturbryggeri and the Scandinavian beer scene in general. For me, the Nordic beers always feel quite clean because of the type of water and things you get here. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. A really interesting beer. I'm glad I got to have a taste of this one on the channel for you. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Närke Kulturbryggeri as well, and I will return to these guys at some point in the near future, no doubt, because they've got some very interesting lagers. But until then, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys on the next one. This was the Märzen 6% ABV from Närke Kulturbryggeri in Örebro here in Sweden. Slange, skål, cheers, see you guys in the next review.